If you're in the process of learning about native plant species, the Vascular Plants of Canada database, VASCAN for short, is a really helpful resource. The database is of species growing outside of cultivation in Canada, so if a species only occurs in a garden or agricultural setting, you won't find it here, but you will find it here whether or not it's native if it's growing outside of cultivation. There's two tools I frequently use on the site. The first is the name search, which is what we're in right now. And it works with either scientific or common names. So I'm going to show Black-eyed Susan. And you will need to be specific with the common names when it comes to things like hyphens to get results. But if you enter black-eyed hyphenated, you'll get Black-eyed Susan, and you come up with a couple of different Rudbeckia Herta. And the same thing works if you do Rudbeckia Herta, which is the botanical name for Black-eyed Susan. You'll get the pop-up here. You could click on it and you'll get a whole list, but this saves you a window if you just click right onto it when it pops down there. And you can see from the map that Rudbeckia Herta is native to 3 middle provinces, and its range has expanded to the west and to the east through human activities in the last couple of centuries. The other tool I use frequently here in VASCAN is a checklist builder. And so if you'd like to know how many species of Rudbeckia are native to your area, you can go to select group. You can scroll through this and select plants, but it's a really long list. So I generally type them in, and you can either click it with your mouse or hit enter. And so you'll have Rudbeckia here. I want to know which Rudbeckia are growing in Ontario, so I'll click the Ontario box and just do create your checklist. And as you can see, this includes genus, sections, species. It'll also include subspecies and naturally occurring varieties. And it indicates whether they are native to Ontario, and of course shows all the other provinces and territories at the same time, but since I'm doing Ontario, it's only showing ones that occur in Ontario outside of cultivation, and it indicates whether they are introduced or they're native. So there are a few native species and a couple of introduced species and varieties of Rudbeckia growing in Ontario. And though introduced ones are actually probably introduced through horticulture because they're both species that are frequently still retailed. VASCAN isn't perfect in the sense that a province can include a wide range of ecosystems and several different ecozones and bioregions. So if you are trying to get to the level of detail for an ecological restoration project, you will need to seek out some more local information, but it can be a good starting place, and it's also quite helpful if you're working on more sort of urban and suburban planting projects and you're dealing with some degree of disruption already. So you're not sort of restoring an ecosystem, but you're trying to draw on plants of the region to plan out a garden or other planting. It's a really useful database to sort of just double check where does this plant come from and make sure that they are actually native rather than an introduced species that has just migrated to the wild and might not yet have strong relationships with the non-plant species that rely on the plants for their survival.